Welcome, everyone, to Music Junkies, a podcast about people sharing extraordinary stories about how music has impacted their lives.
Welcome, everyone, to Music Junkies. I'm your host, Annette Smith, and today's guest is an entrepreneur. He's a speaker. He's a coach. He hosts a fantastic podcast. Ben, from what I know of you, you love helping people. You want to help them live by design. You help people with their mindset and strategies and tactics. And I think that's so important in the world that we live in. And I love what you have just went and accomplished throughout, your last, call it 7-8 years, kind of exploring in this industry. And so I'm super excited to have you on the show today. So welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Annette. I'm really excited about being here and looking forward to spending some great time together.
Yeah, me too. So I know that we had some difficulty putting your playlist together. What was your experience putting your playlist together for me today?
It was, as you know, I'd think of a song and then, okay, what else? Nothing comes to mind. And then something would come one day and send you another message. And yeah, it's good. I got one more that I didn't tell you that came up too, so we can save that for the end if you want.
Sure. Isn't that hilarious how it just happens? I'm impressed because you remind me a lot of me. If somebody asked me to come up with 10 songs, I don't know if I could do it. I really am like amazed that people are like boom, 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 and they have all these stories. Me, I feel like I don't know how I could do it. I would struggle with it.
Yeah.
So,
I know what you mean, for sure.
I feel like we're in the same boat, right? I feel like we're in the same boat.
Yeah, that's great.
So we're just going to get started with your first song, and
Sure.
Bring to My Life, Eminence.
Yes.
Beautiful song. Like, I think if anybody has never heard that song, go download and listen to it. But obviously that song is super powerful, just like even in the very beginning, because you think it's going to be really mellow, which if somebody was like a heavy metaler, they'd be like, oh, let's just skip this song, but they need to just listen to like until it hits 25 seconds and then you're golden.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a great song for sure. Yeah.
So what's your memory from this song or, story from this song?
Yeah, I think I was probably 16 or 17 years old, and growing up, I was not a very popular guy in school. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't super smart. I just didn't really fit in. I had a few close friends and that was about it. But what happened was me and those close friends, we played this online video game called Tibia. And I'm not sure if it still exists. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. It's an RPG. And I actually got really good at that. And so what they would have is they would have all these different servers that you could play on. So basically these different leagues almost in a way. And I built my character up to essentially the number 2 character on the game. So it was like this secret identity I had of kind of feeling like a loser in real life, but a hero in this video game life. And it was a big part of my life. I dedicated hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Pretty much any of my spare time was hooked on playing that game. And that specific song, this was like this almost medieval Lord of the Rings style. You'd have wizards and dragons and knights and all this stuff like that, dwarves and everything, right? And I like that kind of stuff. And we were in this war on this server, so it was an actual the characters were warring, and I was in my character, and it was an intense thing. And this song was playing while I was trapped by all these guys. I ended up dying that day on the server. But it's, it's burned into my mind from being 16, 17 years old of being Lord Draycor. That was his name. And all that song's playing and I'm trying to escape. And yeah, I ended up actually, interestingly enough, that game was so popular at the time that I sold my character. I quit 6 months, a year later, and I sold my character for $1,800 US at the time. So,
wow.
With the amount of hours I put in, that was probably about 2 cents an hour I got paid, but nonetheless, it was still
still made some money from it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was your biggest challenges growing up in high school?
I really didn't like high school. And as I mentioned, I had my few close friends. When we were together, all was good. Otherwise, I just really felt And I don't know that it was necessarily, it wasn't high school, it was my own interpretation of it, but I just really felt like I didn't belong. I just really felt like, why am I here? And what's the point of all this? And so I think those were some of my greatest challenges, was just really feeling that way, led to a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of lack of confidence, a lot of just not really believing myself. So I think that's part of why video games were so attractive, was an escape. It was a great way to, all right, school's done, I could get home, and no, I'm not exaggerating, from 4 o'clock until, 11 o'clock or midnight, play this game, with the exception of coming down to eat with my family. And yeah.
I think a lot of people experience that. High school.
I think so.
Yeah. Going whatever they went through in high school. And I think you don't even really realize the impact that high school has on you as you're going through it. And then later on, when maybe you have kids, you take a little look back in the high school days and you're like, holy cow, right? Here's like what my struggles were. It was so obvious. This is what my struggle was, or these were the things I surrounded myself with. This is why I was experiencing this, or this is what's going on. If I just looked at this way. So it's so crazy, because so many people that come on the show and they talk about, obviously lots of songs are from high school. I heard this thing the other day that most of your music that you really associate with comes from that era of time, that 14 to 18 of time, which is kind of interesting. So I have people on here, and a lot of their playlist is from that time, struggles in high school, partying, whatever it is, right? So it's so interesting.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for sure. I think that for me, I had equated, popularity with self-worth. And I think, again, that is a major challenge in school for sure. And the real life doesn't really care. Social media makes it seem like that, popularity, but the truth is real life doesn't care how popular or not popular are. But took me a while to learn that.
Do you remember your first obsessive band that you loved in high school or growing up, that you were just like, yes, this is my band, I love them?
Yeah, for sure. Blink-182, my very first CD I ever bought.
Nice.
Enema of the State was my very first physical CD. Actually, that's not true. Big Shiny Tunes 2 was
nice.
the first CD I ever bought. But in terms of a band, it would have been Blink-182 back then.
Yeah, they're coming to Calgary here in the next little while. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. I didn't know Calgary, but I know they're coming. I think they're coming in June to Edmonton here, so we're gonna go see them for sure.
Yeah. I know. I think that's Corey's favorite band too. Blink.
Okay, cool, nice.
Yeah. There is a 3-day concert in Vegas that's like a whole bunch of punk bands. So it would be like Bouncing Souls. There's like a million of them, I feel like. Rancid. There's a whole bunch. Anyways, and we're hoping to go if everything drops with COVID. We'll see what
cool. That'll be great.
I'm excited about that. Yeah. So you said your first tape was Big Shiny Tunes too?
First CD.
CD.
First tape was they're Bush now, but Bush X at the time. Whatever album has I think it's called Breathe. Whatever one has. That was my first tape. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked Gavin Rosedale growing up for sure. He was easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
Did you have any crushes growing up? Like any
from music?
Yeah, for music.
Not that I can remember, no.
What about if you could be any 80s lead singer, who would you be?
Oh, that's a great one.
You don't have to be like all the time, just for a week.
Earlier in my life, I wouldn't have said this because I didn't listen to him, but as I got older, probably Bruce Dickinson, part of me from Maiden. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have one of my good friends, his name is Freeman, and he is obsessed with Iron Maiden. I don't think I've ever seen him without an Iron Maiden shirt on for 14
Oh, yeah.
I'm not even kidding you.
Yeah.
So his whole garage is like all Eddie. Like there's not one piece of the garage that's Eddie's. So when I had him on the podcast, I'm like, I want to come to your garage.
Yeah.
The podcast, because I think it would look so cool.
For sure.
Like Eddie's all over the place. It was like awesome. Yeah. He was it was so good, but he's a huge Maiden fan too. Like huge.
That's cool. Yeah, I love them for sure. As I've gotten, I was into from about 18 till maybe 21, 22, I was really into death metal
Yeah.
and the old metal too, but death metal at the time. And then as I got older and I got away from death metal but the metal that always stuck with me was Iron Maiden. So I could
Yeah.
love listening to him still to this day.
I love it. All right, next song. I Hopes.
I Hopes.
Song.
That's the Don Diablo remix too. It's a special one.
I like it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is kind of your memory from that song or experience from that song?
It's actually pretty recent. So I love the lyrics, first of all. And I think that, many of us can relate that you grew up normal, if you will, or you grew up average, whatever you want to call it, but you've got dreams for something greater in your life. And last fall, October, I ran my very first personal development seminar, which had been a dream for a decade, but I'd never done it. And so I was there. I was by myself. I got to the hotel that we were at, the Delta, and they had up on the screen, it said like Ben Spangl seminar, something like that. And then I walked in and I had the music in my ears. So I had these headphones on. This song was on and it was playing. And I walked in and there was the boxes of all the stuff we were giving the attendees, like their workbooks and everything. And then the people were setting up the stage and the song was just playing. And I just started to get emotional. I started to cry that it was a dream come true. And I was standing there and just felt amazing about, wow, here I wanted this for so long and now I'm actually doing it. I'm actually living it. And so that song, I loved it then. I mean, it was only 6 months ago. I love it now. But it means a lot to me for sure.
Yeah. What a great anchor too, right?
Yeah.
Play that song whenever you're kind of feeling down. So share a little bit about your, obviously your self-development journey.
Yeah.
Kind of start, where does it kind of blossom to and touch base obviously on your podcast and what you're coming up for sure.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. I mean, it started for me almost 15 years ago when I got into business. One of my early mentors, Greg, who, I was taking a training class and there must've been 40 or 50 of us in the class. And I felt like he was talking to me. Obviously he wasn't, he was talking to the whole group. But at that point I had hair down to my shoulders. I, maybe owned one dress shirt at the time. And he said something to the extent of is that if you want to really, I'm butchering what he said, but basically if you want to get your dream life, you've got to be willing to grow. You've got to be willing to change. And at the time, this guy, I mean, he was making big money. He was making over $400,000 a year, which at that point in my life, he might as well have been making $4 billion. I mean, the difference between the two wouldn't have mattered to me, right? And but he said, I read a book a week.
Wow.
Some kind of business or personal growth book, something like that. And I was reading zero ever. And I thought to myself, and he was, I don't know, 25, 26. I was 21. I thought, okay, well, this guy has got this great business, this great life, and he's reading a book a week. I should probably start reading. And that was how my personal growth journey began. I got my very first book, Think and Grow Rich. It's not the exact one that I read back then, but it is that book. And I started that, and I'll never forget, it was December 2007. And I was so in love with this book. I just started, and then my grandmother had passed away. And so we were flying to Ontario. And in between, when we landed in Ontario with my mom, my aunt, and I think my brother, we were driving. I was the passenger, of course, and we were driving from Toronto and driving out to wherever we were going. And I'm just reading this book, and I was fascinated by this idea. If you've ever read Think and Grow Rich, the premise is that your thoughts create your reality, is that you become what you think about. And I'd never heard that before. No one ever even told me that. So it was, oh my God, this is amazing. And this is what if I can think this, then I can turn that into real life. And that was my whole journey. That's how it all began. Became obsessed with reading. And then a little bit of YouTube, became a bit obsessed with that for a bit. But of course, podcasts didn't exist back then, but obsessed with listening to great CDs in my car when I was driving to and from work, to and from appointments. And I was part-time in my business. And that really led to, it led to this amazing daily habit of studying every day and growing. And then, a few years later, I went to my very first seminar. And at my very first seminar, I met my wife, Tiffany. And I also felt like I unlocked so many things that seemed to be holding me back. And over the next 12 months, my business doubled, my income doubled, our whole life changed. And so that was my early years in personal development. And then it continued. I just, why do you love the things you love? I don't know. I think it's something that's just put inside each of us that's kind of unique. And I really feel that as my life progressed, that I do know now why I love that stuff so much was I was meant to teach people this stuff. I was meant to bring a unique perspective to it, a different perspective.
Yeah.
And the truth about ideas like this is that, I mean, virtually, if you've read 20 personal development books, you've probably read them all in a way, right? Because it's the same ideas, but they're taught in different ways. They're taught in different perspectives. Once in a while, somebody comes along and can give you, something that you hadn't heard before, or you heard it at the right time, and it was just a different way. And so I love that idea. And so I'm passionate about that. That's how I started my podcast a couple of years back now. And it's all about personal growth and in many, many ways, but it's about, improving your business life and your financial life, your spiritual life, your physical life, your health, your relationships. I mean, you name it. And so what I've done is I teach on there, and then I'll interview somebody on there as well. And so we've had some amazing guests on there, some of the world's best at what they do and in their areas of life. And that's the podcast. And now I run seminars and coaching and courses in that world too. And it's pretty exciting. It's really exciting being able to do that and being able to share, here's what's worked in my life. Here's what I found and learned it and applied it and found this actually worked. And I want to help people be able to do the same. My big question is how do you actually create a life you truly love? How do you create a life? Because a lot of people think, oh, well, the solution to my problem is I make more money, which is fine. I love making money. Don't get me wrong. I think making money is amazing. And there's people that are making lots of money doing something they don't even love. And that's not part of love in life. If you do something for 8 or 10, 12 hours a day that you don't love, I mean, no matter how much money, it's going to be pretty hard to make up the fulfillment. So how do you create a life that you love in all areas? That's my overall pursuit right now.
No, and I love it. And I love that you said, if you've read, 20 personal development books, you've read them all. I love that you said that because, I have been on my own personal development journey for years. And I struggle with that, with going and purchasing another personal development book, thinking, oh, this is going to be a different book. And then I'm 5 pages in and I'm like, this is not, you know what I mean? So like now my search is not necessarily that. It's like really putting those key components to work, what I have read a million times and implementing it and doing all of that stuff. I think my journey was searching for like the perfect way to do it. And I got stuck on that. It was like, oh, do I got to read my goals this way? Do I got to read them upside down, blindfolded? Do I have to put them to my room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got really obsessed with that instead of actually just doing it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that one of the major keys I've learned over the years is that when you get into that work is find people that you resonate with, find people that you enjoy their speaking style, you enjoy their writing style, whatever method you're studying, and then keep repeating that over and over. It's probably not new information you need. It's the same information over and over until it resonates and hits. And that's something that's counterintuitive to most people. They say, well, I already read the book. I already know what it's about. Not in that world. You don't. Yeah. It takes time to really integrate these into our lives.
Yeah. I love that you said that. That's such a key component for sure. All right. Next song. Another good song.
I feel so close to you right now. It's a force field.
And Calvin Harris, feels so
classic.
Close.
Yeah. One of my all-time favorites. I love the song for a long time. And the reason why I picked it for this though, is that right after we got married and, the officiant announced us husband and wife, my wife, Tiffany, and I, that was the song that we left from underneath the altar, whatever you want to call it, to walking down in between everybody. So very special song in my heart for sure.
So are you a romantic? Did you propose romantically?
Well, I don't know if I'd call myself a romantic, but it was a kind of cool proposal. Yeah. We had just been away in Texas at a leadership retreat. And the guy that was down there asked if we were married. And I said, no, not yet. And he's a Mormon, so they're big on getting married. And he said, oh, well, maybe we could get you married here at the ranch. Not yet. I mean, you want to. And so it was this running joke the whole time. And then on the flight back home, I was thinking to myself, I said, man, I love Tiffany. I mean, what am I waiting for? I know I want to marry her. I know I want to be the rest of my life with her. So we had just landed back in Edmonton. There was a 1-day interval between that, and then we were going to Atlanta 2 days later. And so I went, and we already knew even the ring, like I knew kind of what she liked, right? And so I went and bought the ring. I called her dad in that time and asked him, and then I bought the ring the next day, and then we were on a flight to Atlanta the day after that. And so there was 2 connecting flights. And on the second flight, I had gone up. My wife was sleeping. She actually wasn't feeling well, but she was sleeping. And then, but I went up front and talked to the flight attendants and asked if we could call her up on the PA system. And so they called her up, it's Tiffany Spangl here. And so she wakes up and I'm not there. And then she, looking like, what the hell is going on? And so she starts walking up the aisle. And then after she got about halfway, I came out from kind of the curtains and then, talked to her and proposed. And that's how it happened. So
like Adam Sandler and Billy Idol were there and you did.
Exactly. Yeah.
With you on the airplane.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That is super romantic.
Yeah. She says she was so sick. She's like, oh my God, don't propose to me now. I look like a mess. And yeah.
What is one thing that or not just one, what is things you love about your wife?
My wife is, there's a lot. One is she helps ground me. When I get too bent out of shape or too wound up, she'll bring me back, which is great. I love that. She's incredibly supportive. And, in different times in the earlier part of our life and business, I mean, that was sometimes just being able to hang on and, keep moving forward the way that we wanted to. But then as things progressed and, challenges that come up in life too, that we all face. But to have her there, I mean, she's always been incredibly supportive of me no matter what. And then secondly to that is she gives me the space to be me. And I value that. I mean, sometimes I just need to be by myself and she'll give me that space. So she never judges me for that. And so those are 2 things that are massive on the scale for me. There's many more. Those would be 2 right off the bat though.
And you have a few children?
Yeah, we got 2 girls. Yeah, we got a 6-year-old and a 6.5 and 4.5, and they're incredible. And
so being obviously a new parent, what is a couple of things that your kids have taught you that maybe you didn't realize in life at all?
I had this the other day. We were with our daughter, our youngest, and we were just walking from the car to inside the gym to watch our oldest at her cheer competition. And, she is the most joyful creature that I've ever seen, right? Maybe other than my dog. But she was just skipping along and doing her thing. And I told her, I said, Hannah, you teach Dad all the time about what life's really about. I think as we become adults, we need to have a reason to be happy. We need to have a reason to feel joy. Whereas it doesn't matter. I mean, there's no reason. She just is that way. So that's a huge lesson. And that literally just happened the other day. And, yeah, I think that any parent can relate to this, but just, and when I didn't have kids, kind of imagined what you think love is. And then you have your child and you realize that words aren't able to express or do justice the way you feel for them. And in such a unique way, like no other love is, right? Like your spouse know, like your parents know, your best friend know. I mean, it's something so unique. So I think to have a greater understanding of true love in that way.
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, my kids are 25 and 27. So they're now looking at having babies. My son just married in August and they're trying to have kids. And before the wedding, they were talking about, I started getting very panicky about this situation. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to be grandma. We're gonna have to come up with all these different names. We're Icelandic. So I'm like Googling what's, grandma in Iceland, and it wasn't good. Don't do that. I probably don't want to be called that. And now, I don't know. It's just, because there's been so much talk with it. It's like, I'm like super excited about it. I've been talking to a lot of people that have grandkids, that are young grandparents, and they're like, this is like, it's going to be like nothing you've ever experienced before. That excites me. I like to experience stuff I've never experienced before. And I'm like holding on to this whole belief of like, oh, my persona of how old a grandma should be. Right.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to look up grandma in Icelandic later. I got to figure out what that is, but
here's the next song. So the Eagles, get over
The
it.
Eagles, get over it. Yeah. I remember it. It's amazing, actually. It's funny when I would listen to those songs, they wouldn't necessarily immediately bring that up, but when you play them right now, it brings up a memory for sure. And I'm not sure how old I would have been, in my early teens, probably. But it just reminds me of some of the better times growing up with my mom and dad. I mean, there was a lot of times that weren't very nice. My mom and dad ended up getting divorced. They both struggled with alcohol addiction, the whole time we were growing up, and lots of fighting and lots of stuff like that. But there was some good times. And I feel like often when that song or that album was playing and some of the greatest hits of the Eagles was playing, it'd even just be as simple as it was a Saturday and we were all kind of cleaning the house in different areas, but it just felt very different. It just felt nice. And that's what that song reminds me of. I can picture me not being in the kitchen, but I can picture my mom being in the kitchen and my dad's probably, cleaning one of the bedrooms or whatever. And my brother and I might have to clean the bathrooms. And, but it brings back good memories of that household and growing up. Yeah.
Did your parents listen to music all the time? Like, what kind of music did your parents listen to when you were growing up?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of that, a lot of the Eagles, Don Henley, stuff like Deep Purple. I would say a lot of 70s, style music would have been what they were into. I mean, I'm sure there's many more that I'm not able to think. My mom had this album, Cherry Poppin' Daddies. She listened to that a lot. There was a local musician they listened to quite a bit.
Do you remember your first concert?
My first concert? I think my first concert I ever went to was Warped Tour.
Oh, nice.
2004 would have been, maybe. I think I just turned, maybe it was 2003. I think it might have been 17. So 2003, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. It was in Seattle. We took a road trip, me and a couple buddies and one of his dads. And it was a special one too, because it was Iron Maiden was there, which was great. Lots of death metal bands I loved. And then Ozzy Osbourne was there and Black Sabbath as well. And they actually had Ozzy in the Black Sabbath band. He sung for them a little bit in there, which was, so it was kind of unique, right? That they were all together and then Ozzy too. So yeah, Black Label Society loved them back then. And
they were just like at the Gray Eagle, Black Label.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
No. Yeah. The Anthrax and Black Label Society was just there. Just cool. I just got cause I always get these notifications, but Megadeth is coming there May 2nd. My phone was like, I don't know if you know, but Megadeth is coming. I started laughing and I'm like, oh my God, last time I seen Megadeth, I was handcuffed with my girlfriend because she'd never been to a concert before. And she was scared because we were on the floor. That's when you could be on the floor and it was wild and crazy.
Yeah.
Were these guys trying to get these handcuffs off because it was just not, you don't have handcuffs on the floor when you're at a metal concert. It's not a good idea. So sorry to get these handcuffs off. It was not good at all.
I just realized it wasn't Warped Tour. That was a later one. I think it was Ozfest is what it might have been.
Cool.
Yeah. I went to Warped Tour maybe the year after that. So that was my second one, but yeah.
I like Warped Tour. It's a lot of fun. I love going and seeing a whole bunch of bands at the same time and being outdoors and picking and choosing and then just going and seeing some people that you maybe never even heard of.
Yeah.
It's super fun to do that. I love
it. Yeah, it is. They're great settings for sure.
Are you a big movie buff?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Do you have a soundtrack from a movie that you like though?
I mean, there was a period of time that when I was 18, we listened to Dazed and Confused almost every day. So, that's a great soundtrack for sure. Now in my life, we love Sing 2, the soundtrack to Sing 2, Frozen. Those are the kind of soundtracks that are big in my household right now. Yeah. Moana.
That's so funny because when the kids were growing up, it was Barney and Teletubbies.
Oh yeah, I love Barney. Yeah.
It's
and
now I have no idea what's even happening out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many different. It's every week there's a new Disney movie. The parents are just shelling out money for hockey and Disney movies.
There you go.
Then obviously dance and cheer. That's expensive too.
Yeah.
All right, next song. The song's called Flying.
Flying, yeah, by Peter B. Helland. Yeah, my wife and I were, this was 2017. We had been in our house for a couple of years, 18 months maybe, and we just found this on YouTube actually. And what it is I think it's only a 20 or 30-minute song, but somebody had looped it on YouTube for about 8 hours. And so we would just have it playing in our home all the time. So, we'd just be whatever, we're sitting there at night, it's playing in the background. And it's just, I love the song. It's a beautiful song. And so I find it's very relaxing, very calming. And then, so we played it a lot. We still do. We played a lot. We play a lot of his stuff now. But anytime I want to calm down, if I just want to be relaxed, I play his stuff. But that was a song that we would play over and over. And then in 2018, our youngest was born. And while she was being born, that song was also being played too. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that was getting into, either have gotten into personal development or been in personal development for a long time? What would you say the 3 or 4 key factors to follow over and over and over again to help you achieve some of the things that you wanted to achieve in your life?
Well, I think number one is application, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to, shouldn't say you wouldn't be able to. It's very unlikely you'll be able to apply everything that you read, everything you hear in a podcast, everything you take in a course. But I find many people will read and not apply anything. They'll listen and not apply. They'll go to a seminar and not apply anything. And at the end of the day, if you don't apply what you're learning, then the truth is you haven't actually learned anything. I mean, true knowledge comes from, I learn the idea, I apply it, that creates some kind of result, and now I have an experience. And then I'm actually learning through that experience. And that's the truth about knowing anything is, what do you actually know? That you don't know anything except for your own life experience. That's the only thing you really do know. That's what I learned that way. So that's number one, is application, right? Be willing to apply and be willing to test out ideas and see how they work in your life. I think the second thing too is that, there's not a person listening or watching that doesn't want to change their lives in some degree. Right. In many of us, there's many things we want. Even if your life is going great, you probably want it to go better. Right. Yeah. You'd like to be healthier. You'd like to be happier. You'd like to be wealthier. You'd like to have more freedom of time and, more joy and all of these things. So with that being said, I think that one of the keys in creating a better life is that in order to change your life, it takes time and consistent effort. And we know that. I mean, if someone says, okay, well, I want to get in great shape, nobody would say, okay, well, listen, whatever you do, don't work out consistently, because everyone would say, hey, where would you start? Even if they're not in great shape, you ask, where would you start? Well, probably working out consistently. I mean, that's where I would start. And then when you get in great shape and you're in this amazing shape, nobody reaches the pinnacle of great shape and then says, good, I got there. I can stop working out. I can stop eating well, because now it's just not the way life works, right? So we would never balk at the idea of, okay, I'm in great shape. I'm going to keep working out for my conditioning to stay in good physical health. But yet people do this mentally and in their personal growth all the time. We'll reach a level of success and then they'll stop reading, they'll stop studying, they'll stop learning, they'll stop growing as if they've got it. But just like your body requires consistent physical conditioning, your mind requires consistent mental and spiritual conditioning. And, the tools that we use, whether it be through reading or visualization or, many of these things, and, starting to learn how to control your thought process. So I think that's a huge one, would be a big lesson, is that keep going, stay with it. Just because it didn't work for you right away doesn't mean it's not going to work. I mean, it takes time. You didn't get to your life to where that you are overnight. So if your life doesn't change overnight, that doesn't mean it doesn't work.
That's right. I agree. Yeah, that's good. And I think you're so right. A lot of people read a book or maybe try something. This book told me to do this, so I'm going to do it for 15 days. Or I always notice when people talk about personal development, there is a date. Do you know what I mean? It's like the 30-day challenge, the 60 challenge, the 90-day challenge. And it's just like, well, no, it's just like a life challenge. Like if you like drinking a gallon of water a day, eventually you start to like it, then why stop doing that? It doesn't have to be for 90 days. Doesn't have to be for a certain amount of time. I find that a lot of people do put a time limit on there. This has to be for 30 days, building a habit is a 21-day. Well, that might not, we're not all built the same. So maybe it's going to take you 3 years to build that habit. Who knows?
Oh yeah. I mean, the idea, that's a total myth, the idea of 21 days to build a habit.
Yeah.
It's a total myth. There is no exactness to it. That's just right.
Yeah.
But it depends on what it is. Some are going to be easier than others.
Yeah.
I never floss my teeth. I started flossing my teeth recently. I put it on the, right where I can see it all the time. And all of a sudden I floss my teeth regularly after, right. 35 years, 36 years of not doing it, but then starting to do it. But it's a pretty simple one. It's not right. I mean, when we start looking at some of these other things that have a lot more moving pieces to it, I mean, it might be, to your point, it might take you a year. It might take you 2 years to really build that habit. We don't know.
What do you think about the whole process of trying to cram it all in? It's like, okay, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to read my goals. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to, read, exercise. My daily morning routine now is 2.5 hours. I have 6 kids. I got to be at work at 8:30. So I should get up at 5 o'clock. I just think, it's just unrealistic.
Yeah. I think that sometimes people will look at that and say that for sure. And I think that if your thought is that I have to be able to do all of these things, every single one of them that everybody told me I should do, then it can become very overwhelming and it can seem very unrealistic. Whereas instead, I think that you're your own best teacher. I mean, you understand yourself better than anyone else would. And to figure out, what do I need right now? What allows me to feel the best? What allows me to be the most effective mom I can be? What allows me to be the most effective dad I can be? Husband, wife, business, leader, whatever it may be in your life. What are the practices that allow me to think and feel and behave in the closest alignment with who I want to be? And that might be for some, like I love meditating. So I do meditate almost every day. Other people, that may not be their thing. I love to read. I read every day. Yeah. Other people, maybe not. But to your point, I mean, perfect world, if I could meditate for an hour every day, if I could read for an hour every day, if I could journal for another hour, if I could exercise, I mean, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be really great to do all those things. It is challenging when we've got families, we got businesses, we got careers, we got jobs, we get all this other stuff. It can become challenging to do so. What I will say is that often people think, okay, I can't do it all, so I won't do anything. And that's definitely not helping you. That's definitely not. So figure out what works for you. I think morning routines are great. It may not be your ideal one yet, but you can find one that works for you in your life right now.
I love how you said, go find, like, what do you need right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that we are being told what to do all the time. Whatever book we read, whatever podcast we read, whatever mentor we have, and that is their perception for us.
Yeah.
And we take all of this kind of stuff in, and then we're not consistent because it wasn't our idea to begin with, and maybe
totally
it's the right stuff for us to do. So I love that you said that. What is something that I could, that would be good for me right now? I love that you said that. I think something that's good for you right now, and something that you could commit to. And anytime you're building something new, it's going to be hard. Yeah. Right. So it's easy. 2 things. It's easy to overcommit. I'm going to do all these things. So you end up doing none of them. Then you just drop off entirely. But then it's also easy for people to, oh man, that was, it's hard. Well, yeah, it is hard. You're right. Change is hard. Yeah.
But it's also worth it, right? If that's something that you really want to, you feel amazing when you do that thing, whatever it might be, or you're the best, in your life when you're doing that one thing or those 2 things, why wouldn't you create time to do those if it allows you to feel the way you want to feel, if it allows you to operate the way you want to operate? Yeah. So
Ben, you're in charge of the last song. So what's the last?
Sure. It's kind of new in my repertoire. I might be able to. So that song, Till You Can't, by Cody Johnson. I was never a country guy. But the last few years started getting into country. My wife loves country. And I don't know when it was, 6 months ago, a year ago, I'm not sure, couldn't tell you, but I became familiar with this song. And have you ever heard this song?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, go listen to it after it's a beautiful song. it's all about, you know, the song's called Till You Can't, but it's about live your life, because one day you're not going to be able to, right? You can keep putting things off forever, but one day you can't. And so it's a beautiful song. I was just at a conference a couple of weeks ago and was speaking at it. My whole talk was around this idea of that, you know, you've got things in your life, you've got dreams in your life, you've got people you want to help and things you want to do with them and for them and things that you want for your life. And we act in a lot of ways like we're not going to die, but we're all going to die. And so this song's a beautiful reminder of that. And, you know, we had we were going to book a trip with my dad and his partner to Costa Rica. And so we were starting to talk about it and plan it. And then about 2 months later, she got diagnosed with cancer. And about a month after that, she died. And so we never got to take that trip. You know, we never got to go on that trip. And that song reminds me of that, of just that. And you're not going to be able to live here forever. So
yeah,
live your life the way you want to and do the things you want to.
Yeah, I agree. I love that you said that, because I feel like for most of my kind of career, I've really put a lot of that kind of stuff on the sidelines.
Yep.
I got to build. I got to build.
Yep.
And the only trips I take is with the company and all of this stuff.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And now, like, I don't know what happened, just like changed like this year. I'm like, you know what? We just sat down the other day and we booked like 3 trips for ourselves. So I was just
That's
like,
cool.
And it felt really freeing. It felt really freeing. And I felt like, geez, like I want to start living my life, because everybody around me seems to be living their life. And they, you know what I mean? So I'm like, what am I doing? I need to start living my life more. So it's so important. So it's very, very important.
Yeah.
So before I let you go today, I'd love for you just to share with the audience, where can we find you, your podcast, YouTube channel?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're on TikTok or not, but I know you're on Instagram. And
yeah, I think I have a TikTok account. I don't actually use it right now, but maybe one day. Yeah, Instagram in terms of a social platform, that's the best one. So it's just at Ben Spangl, and Spangl is SPANGL, no E on it. So that's that. Facebook, you can find me on there too. YouTube, same thing. I got a YouTube. My podcast is called The Pursuit. So if you just search The Pursuit and Ben, I mean, you're going to find it. There's a few called The Pursuit, but you'll find mine. It's on all the major platforms. If people want more info, you can go to my website, benspangl.com. And that'll have stuff in terms of like our events and any speaking we're doing and those kind of things. So
love it. So before I let you go today, Ben, what are some words of wisdom that you could leave us?
You know, not to just repeat it, but I think it's super important. And even what you talked about, where you realize that I need to live my life for myself. And I'm a big fan. I really believe in this idea that all of us are unlimited by nature, and all of us have the ability to be, do, and have what we want in our lives. And most people don't actually believe that. They hope for it. You know, if I could win the lottery, if something great could happen, if I could get my lucky break, whatever it may be. But the truth is that you can be, do, and have whatever you want. And you may not believe that yet, but you keep studying these ideas, eventually you have to come to believe it, I think, anyways. And if that's the case, why wouldn't you go and get the life that you really want? So many people just settle into it's okay or it's good enough, it's pretty good, rather than the life they really want. And, like that song, Till You Can't. I mean, one day we won't. And we don't know. Is that a year from now, a decade from now, 40 years from now, 60? I don't know. None of us do. Right. That's one of the big uncertainties about life. Right. I hope I'm here a much longer time than I've been here so far, but I don't know. So with that being said, I know I'm leaving one day. I want to make the best of this. I want my life to be lived on my terms. I want to be who I want to be. I want to do what I want to do. I want to have the life that I want to have. And that's my message for people is if you've got something you want to be, do, or have, just go be, do, or have that thing.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ben, for sharing your words of wisdom, for sharing your songs and your wisdom as well. Love that. Like, follow, subscribe. I will make sure that I put everything of Ben's on our social media platforms when we're putting out his podcast as well. Thank you again, Ben, for joining us today on Music Junkies. I so appreciate your time and your friendship.
Well, thank you, Annette. It's been great. You're a great host.